Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our 2020, or our February 25th, 2025, 2 o'clock Commissioner Consent Agenda meeting. Let the record reflect that we have all 5 commissioners are here. Commissioner Waldorf is on Zoom. And I am just going to ask, as we approve things today, if your stamp is, it's okay that we can use your stamp.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Since I was just informed by our legal counsel that I need to make sure I ask every time. Poor Matt. So again, and then there was no written comments that we received for items on today's agenda. So it is 2:04, and we will go ahead and get started, and we'll all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. That will then take us to our open public forum. And I do have 5 people that have signed up. And so we'll start with Susie Hoganson.
Hello, all of you. Susie Hokinson. I live at 1315 West Woodside, so the part that really should join the city, but I'm in the county. And last time when I was here, I stepped on 2 pieces of paper, and they just slid out from under me. So as you get more mature, remember, be careful. Anyway, I hope all of you were able to follow Alberto, who is the Nicaraguan that was taken by ICE on the 8th of February. He is one of the 3 men that I got out of Tijuana, and he's one of them that he and his uncle were moved for 14 months to 8 different detention centers. But he was taken. But I got to spend last Thursday at Olympia, and it was really exciting. I'd come the week before, but none of you were here because I thought you were all in Olympia, so I got to keep on top of things. But then there were 4 of you all at Olympia that I got to be surprised by. But I got to have a wonderful visit with Mike Volz, and an interesting visit with Jenny Graham, and a wonderful visit with Andrew Ingalls, who's just a dear friend of mine. And then did spend time with Marcus, because my dear friend is in detention in Tacoma, and I was able to take time, stay over, and Friday I visited him in the detention center for 80 minutes, and I was the first visitor he'd had in 2 weeks. Alberto only gets 2 visits a week, so someone took his wife and boys over on Sunday, and his visitation time with them was from 7:30 till 9 at night, and it was just very, very sad. But I had gone through the training. Oh, time. Good. I'd gone through the training, which is Know Your Rights, and I'm leaving one of these for each one of you. I encourage everyone to take the workshop. If someone would have been there with him, they would have reminded him, no warrant, no arrest. They would have reminded him, be silent. And if you have any people of color in your life, indigenous, whatever, be aware of this, because this shouldn't be happening. I met a wonderful, beautiful young wife there at the detention center. Her husband came when he was 8 years old. They owned their business. They owned their house. He had no record. He didn't smoke. He didn't drink. They were taking the kids to school. 4 cars surrounded him and took him, and he was there in the detention center. But we've just got to be careful what's going on. If you know anyone of color, and hopefully you do. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you. Next, I have Craig Volesing. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Craig Volesing. My address is a matter of record here. I had a hard time with a decision this morning whether or not to devote any more time and energy to come before this board once more. The question I wrestled with was, would it do any good? Concern for my fellow PFAS pollution victims and writ larger, my community, has driven me to try once more. It has now been much more than a month since we were told that a resolution for this board to establish a clean, safe water task force was being prepared by the county's legal department. We have heard nary a word from you folks in the meantime. And still, nothing appears on this board's agenda. One result is a range of emotions and reactions being expressed across the West Plains community. A lot of it ends up coming my way. Those emotions include, but are not limited to, the following: anger, disappointment, mystification, outrage, incredulity, chagrin, incomprehension, irritation, bafflement. You can imagine the rest of the list, some of it not repeatable here. When I last spoke here in mid-January, I encouraged you to shift into second gear and add some throttle. And, quote, let's see what this vehicle can do. Instead, it seems you have eased it into neutral and let it coast. We could be doing meaningful work while you wait on your legal department. Such work could be convening the membership of the task force in order to discuss and resolve important aspects, housekeeping, working together, things that help organize how a task force works. From such simple items as the scheduling of meetings, rules of order, date lines, reporting guidelines, all the way to establishing the more tough stuff like goals and objectives in our quest for solutions and climate justice. And in the meantime, we are left with nothing but paper and talk. Nothing but paper and talk. We are now well into our 8th year, and that this board cannot move on this matter more quickly, I find unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we'll hear from John Hancock.
My name's John Hancock. I live on the West Plains. I have PFAS in my well. My house is straight north of the Northern Quest Casino on Deep Creek. That's where I am in the world. And I want to share this report, which is copied on the back of the map that you have. EPA sent its team of engineers and well testers to the West Plains and tested 450 private wells in this zone downstream from the airport. And this map shows the results. And all the dark red parts of these pie charts are homes with PFAS more than 20 times the legal limit now at the federal level. So this is the number of people who may still now be drinking seriously poisoned water. Ecology and DOH have provided beginning level pitchers and undersink filters for about 50 of these families. Not nearly enough. All the rest are waiting for some action. That's the action that Craig's talking about. And I also want you to know that this EPA publication is the first of its kind in the PFAS exploration in the country. Never before has EPA put out this level of actual geophysical data about the plume. And the other map that accompanies this is Fairchild's map using the same geolocation reporting. And the Department of Defense has never done a report like that before. So EPA's engineers helped Fairchild's engineers create the second map there of the west side of the neighborhood. So we're asking for your attention to keep this going forward, as Craig said, so that we can go from, we in Spokane can go from having one of the worst PFAS contaminations in the country to being the community that's in the lead on national solutions. And you can share that if you decide, and now's the time. We were promised in the spring of last year clean water by next summer. Well, next summer is only 2 or 3 months from now, so let's get going. My neighbors, as Craig said, are angry with you. They're impatient with us. Let's do it, because we can turn this around, and we must. And I appreciate your work. Let's get together and get rolling. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Heidi Mealy.
Hi, I'm Heidi Miley, 15215 South Miley Lane on Fish Lake. After a public hearing January 28th, commissioners denied access over a Parks and Recreation parcel on Fish Lake for Mr. Morrow, the owner of a small parcel that's halfway underwater, number 24051.9005. We are so appreciative of the efforts of Park Ranger Bryant Robertson for all he does for Fish Lake year-round. We know he's just one ranger for the vast needs across all of Spokane County, and he's spread extremely thin. Ranger Robinson put in no trespassing signs February 20th. Some, though, disappeared that night. Ranger Robinson came back when we called on the 21st to inspect. Though the counties denied Mr. Morrow access, Ranger Robinson explained to us at that time that he would possibly be reluctant to cite Mr. Morrow if he ever drove across your parcel. He said that he would need more definitive and specific language provided to him. We said we'd be happy to help commissioners maybe provide more specifics. Commissioner French mentioned to a few of us that when we ever see Mr. Morrow driving down to the shoreline across the Parks and Rec parcel to notify Ranger Robinson or a deputy, and one could easily cite Mr. Morrow. However, Ranger Robinson told us there would be a myriad of reasons why he likely would not, and added that a deputy likely would not, because the deputy would not be familiar enough with why Mr. Morrow doesn't have access. Ranger Robinson tells us there are too many gray areas in his view, so he appears to be waffling maybe on whether he would be able to carry out your denial. It seems to us maybe other people in the past have wiggled around directives that Ranger Robinson was trying to execute. Now, in this particular case, Ranger Robinson told us that, for example, Mr. Morrow could go down by using neighboring property owner Mr. Hansen's maintenance easement, noting that Mr. Hansen's easement allows for a guest to drive down for maintenance. Now, we're sure that that provision is meant for Mr. Hansen maybe needing a contractor, but not to loan this for use to a different parcel. Ranger Robinson continued to reference back to Mr. Morrow having landowner rights, and that he could get various permits that would still let him drive across the Parks and Rec parcel. However, Mr. Morrow has no exemptions or permits. Ranger Robinson was surprised when we explained that code enforcement told us that it hopes and plans to put in a Jersey barrier to stop Mr. Morrow from driving across that Parks and Rec parcel. That's my part of the testimony.
Thank you. And next we have Kathy Kraus.
Hi, I'm Kathy Kraus. I live at 15107 Cheney Spokane Road, directly above Mr. Morrow's parcel. I'm also very grateful for Ranger Robinson's time and effort in continuing neighbors' testimony on Fish Lake today. Code enforcement told us orders from Mr. Morrow to remediate any illegal developments he's already done without permits will have to coincide with when he can boat in and out, showing this is not to be done by driving a vehicle across the Parks and Rec parcel. To us, the commissioner's denial of the no trespassing signs and the forthcoming Jersey barriers and the timing of remediation to the coincide with Mr. Morrow can boat in and out all clearly indicate the commissioner's intent that Mr. Morrow does not drive down across your parcel or find a way to wiggle around your denial. Please let us know how we can facilitate getting more clear definitions to Ranger Robinson and deputies on Mr. Morrow's restrictions, especially any ambiguous wiggle room and gray area where Mr. Morrow could manipulate in an officer's understanding. We want to make sure Mr. Morrow does not get vehicles down near the shoreline to continue developing illegally or get the park model home down there, as he wrote and intends to do in a letter that he sent to neighbors. Also, we have not seen the Parks and Recreation put the stolen trespassing signs back in yet. We're not sure if you want to use your more official-looking signs, but we hope they go back in. On a different subject, Mr. Morrow has sent me a letter and has offered a sale of his property that's underwater, reasonably offer compared to the adjacent parcel. He said your Parks and Rec parcel was appraised at $65,000. We're confused on where the number came from. We believe the Parks and Rec piece involved was appraised at $16,500. We're not sure Mr. Morrow's numbers was a typo, or is he looking for some kind of larger sum. Mr. Morrow has also threatened he will continue to develop if nearby neighbors do not buy his parcel. A small graph he also included shows he intends to develop a graveled area, which is where we believe he would park a non-permitted park-style home near the shoreline. We hope the county will buy this parcel. However, in light of the letter, neighbors want to make sure it doesn't sell to somebody who could also be also equally as troublesome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So that is the end of the people that I have that have signed up for public comment, open public forum. Is there anyone else wishing to testify at the open public forum? Seeing no one in the audience and no one online. Third and final call for anyone wishing to testify. Seeing no one, I will then close the open public forum and look to my fellow commissioners. Oh, just a second. Commissioner French.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to address a couple things for the point of providing information as well as some of the testimony. With regard to the access down to Fish Lake, I was told after the hearing, after the board took its action, that the way to enforce that was going to be through the park ranger. So if that is not happening, can we make that happen? If there's no enforcement, then basically there's been no action by the board and stuff. And so would one of you please close the loop on that and make sure that we do in fact have enforcement down there. With regard to, and as my fellow commissioners know, at the end of last week, we submitted a grant application for POET filtration systems for the West Plains, all 259 of the contaminated wells, as we were instructed by Ecology. And so that is now in the process. We are also working with members to try and, if not have a separate allocation, to be part of the Department of Health's allocation for filtration systems. So we've got two paths to move forward with regard to addressing the issue of PFAS. The one thing that we have, and I've discovered in the last couple of weeks in my continued efforts to try and address PFAS in the West Plains, is that Spokane County and the West Plains Aquifer appears to be the only aquifer in the state that's contaminated with PFAS, that's a drinking source. And so what I was hoping for in terms of joining with other counties to be able to approach the legislature and say that this is a statewide issue and it demands statewide attention, only to discover that we are standing alone and trying to get the state to prioritize the concerns of keeping healthy water for the citizens on the West Plains. With regard to the status of the documentation, we did, Commissioner Jordan and I did meet 4 weeks ago with our attorney, Matt Folsom, to try and resolve the scope for the task force, and we've not come to terms with regard to the scope. And there's a difference of opinion with regard to what should be included in the task force so that we can move forward. But we will resolve that so that we can move forward. With regard to status of other approaches, I've sent off to Chad Pritchard as recently as last week some new technology to address cleaning up PFAS in an aquifer, and I'm waiting to hear back a response from him on whether the technology is real or not. We've gone through a number of these technological approaches where, yeah, we can clean up 50% of the PFAS, or 65 or 75% of it, but there's no known technology yet for cleaning up PFAS out of an aquifer. The latest overture that I had last week and discussions with the manufacturer, I don't know whether it's real or not, but I sent it off to Dr. Pritchard to try and confirm that and stuff. So we continue to work on pushing forward with finding a solution for PFAS for the West Plains, regardless of whether the task force is in place or not. So I just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. So then I will look to my fellow commissioners.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve items 3, 4, and 5, including all sub-items on today's agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve items 3, 4, and 5, and all sub-items as presented on today's agenda. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. That takes us to the end of our meeting. Is there any other items to come before us?
Nothing from me, Commissioner.
Nothing for me, thank you.
Okay, thank you. That will conclude our meeting for today, and then we will sign some documents and be back for next week. Thank you all very much.